Attention, duped masses!
You're listening to Media Monarchy with James Evan Pilato.
Eclipsing history, deleting history, and covert bands. Plus this day in history with Ruby Ridge and our Song of the Day by Tobacco on your Morning Monarchy for August 22nd, 2017. I'm James Evan Pilato from MediaMonarchy.com. Welcome to wherever you are for another listener-supported blast of independent, non-commercial alternative media. Hope you're doing well. We are streaming live, MediaMonarchy.com/listen, essentially Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 Pacific time. You got an hour of indie news in the morning, you got an hour of music in the afternoon, and it's all brought to you by you. Glad you're here. Hey, thanks for giving us a day off yesterday. We decided to take Eclipse Day off. We were in 99.24% of totality, and it was pretty good. I had a great time. I was a little worried I might not be able to see anything. There have definitely been celestial events here in the past in Portland where you go outside and you look up and it's like it's just clouds and rain. I can't see anything. This, however, was the perfect celestial event. I was able to watch it from the comfort of our apartment balcony, which you may see in some episodes of Good News Next Week. Frank and I got to enjoy the balcony. Actually, Cassie was at her workplace on the roof shooting the eclipse with a GoPro. I guess she has to do that for work. We sometimes have to do these things for work and take a little bit of time off and enjoy the nice things that are happening in our world. Hopefully you are enjoying some of the nice things that happen in your world, and we get together for an hour each and every morning to talk about the real news of what's really going on in the world, hopefully in a fear-free fashion. I've been doing Media Monarchy since September 11th, 2005. Holy moly, our 12th anniversary is coming up, and we are brought to you by you. MediaMonarchy.com/support has all the ways that you can help support our work. I know summers can be tough, and honestly, I may tell you at this point, probably next year, we might just take Augusts off entirely. It's when my birthday is, it's when we work Pick-a-thon, it's when everybody's out traveling all around and everybody's essentially checked out, and it can be kind of brutal sometimes doing radio shows for just a couple of people. And I know you're busy out there and running around. That's, you like to have daily content, but of course we also need breaks as well. So don't be surprised in the future if we just straight up take the entire month of August off. As they say, you don't introduce new products in August. Everybody's gone. Everybody's checked out. But I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad that we can build this. Tuesday is Tech Tuesday. We call it Cyber Space War, and all the stories that we're about to talk about, I tweet out about an hour before showtime. And even if you follow down that rabbit hole of the hashtag Cyberspace War, you will find all kinds of news. We basically just cherry-pick the nice 10 or dozen or so stories that we can talk about here in a way. If you dive down those hashtags, holy moly, you'll find all kinds of other news. Because again, it is brought to you by you. We've even reached the point now where other agencies and outlets are using our hashtags. It happened several months back. I noticed some food place using Food World Order. And I think they were just typing in the words, typing in food hashtags, and mine came up and they clicked on it and chose it. I don't think it's anything probably more than that, but it's quite interesting when you see other news outlets talking about hashtag Cyberspace War. The things we do in alternative media tend to influence the mainstream a little bit later. Let's glance at the breaking lamestream news before we dive into everything else. Trump wants an unlimited troop increase in Afghanistan. We'll talk about that in just a few minutes. Of course, that is the time-tested tradition of America's next top puppet presidents. Continuing war of resources. You got to keep that opium flowing, too. Some remains of missing 10 sailors found after the collision. Now, take a little bit of time off and we miss some of these actions and some of these events. Some remains, that's the quote, of 10 missing U.S. sailors have been found after the collision between the U.S. destroyer John S. McCain and an oil tanker near Singapore. Navy and Marine Corps divers found the remains in the sealed compartments aboard the McCain. That's pretty telling right there. Oh, wet start John McCain. A long, illustrious history of destructive American politics. Now, here's an interesting one that apparently ties in with the state of Oregon, as it always does. Treasury Secretary's wife boasts of travel on government plane, touts Hermes and Valentino fashion. And then you see, highly cited from the New York Times, Mnuchin's wife mocks Oregon woman over lifestyle and wealth. Apparently, they got into it over Instagram. Louise Linton is the label-loving wife of Stephen Mnuchin. She basically replied condescendingly to an Instagram post about her lifestyle and belittled the woman, Jenny Miller, mother of 3 from Portland, Oregon, for having less money than she does. I think she also belittles her for being a lazy-ass, basic bitch. Hey, go enjoy Game of Thrones, dummy. And that's how the powers that shouldn't be think of you. Again, do you think they eat a bunch of garbage out of vending machines and sit their lives in cars waiting to go to cubes for jobs that don't give a shit about them? No, they've built their own thing. They might be a bunch of multi-generational killers and serial killers and globalist scumfucks, but they ain't lazy. You do have to give them that. So we'll chalk that one up as a draw. I realized, y'all, we missed doing our fact check on Friday. Sometimes there's so much news that we're plowing through. I forgot to do our fact check. How on earth are you going to know how to look at any news and information unless Google and New York Times and the rest hold your hand and tell you what to think? Was driver acting in self-defense? That's from factcheck.org, and as that is very vague, with all the car ramming copycat events going on, it's pretty tough to know which story they're talking about. Republican Senate hopefuls absurd claim Montana Senator John Tester supports a national gun registry. That's from PolitiFact. And the musical question from Snopes. This one actually had me click on the story. Sorry, I had to give Snopes a click. Did a former BBC investigative journalist die in suspicious circumstances? Liz McKean fought to reveal historical child sexual abuse and was basically stonewalled by the BBC. She only died of natural causes. So that's one of those fun parts about when you click at Snopes. And yes, it's a sensational headline from your Newswire, a place that runs a bunch of garbage news. And we've talked about this before, and I believe it was even in a Corber Report Classics Extra episode that just made the rounds over the last week. Of course, about the history of fake news. We told you about fake news even within the so-called alternative media many years ago on New World Next Week. All these news sites that popped up that were fooling even us a couple of years ago. Eric Holder gets job at Goldman Sachs. I know it's pretty believable, but it wasn't exactly true at that moment. So here's the fun part about this Snopes bit, is they're writing an article saying, oh, that's ridiculous. That BBC investigative journalist who was investigating pedophilia and the pedogate within the BBC and others, she didn't die of crazy circumstances. It was natural. Oh, so she was still fired and ridiculed for trying to investigate pedophilia? Yeah, okay. So that part's still right. Your last couple of fact checks. Miley Cyrus forbidding Liam Hemsworth from working with Jennifer Lawrence again. And if you don't know what those words mean, you're pretty lucky. And finally, Attorney General Sessions' absurd link between sanctuary policies and crimes in Chicago and Miami-Dade. That's probably worth investigating. That's from the Washington Compost. So yeah, there's Snopes debunking conspiracies by misrepresenting them. And we get that from our chat. Like, we get a lot of smart things from our chat. Huge thanks to you. You can join our chat in Discord. And that's what we're using for the time being until they turn into bastards and they kick us out because the things we say. Although, as we've noted before, that typically doesn't happen to us. We're not the kind of outlet that spends their time running around saying, oh, we're banned from this. Oh, I got kicked out of that. Oh, I'm being attacked. You know, we've never been like that. And honestly, you've probably lived enough of your life to kind of wonder when you always hear that from people and that's all they ever do. Like, yeah, you probably did something to shoot yourself in the foot. It's not always everybody out to get you. So, okay, let's get back to Eclipse, shall we? And you are listening to The Morning Monarchy for Tuesday, August 22nd, 2017. I'm James Evan Pilato from MediaMonarchy.com. Glad you're here. B.O.B. is his name. Bobby Ray Simmons Jr., but he's known as B.O.B. I don't know if they call him Bob in the music world. He's one of those music guys. I've seen the name a lot, never heard the sounds. The solar eclipse arrived, and so did amazing new, respected astronomical takes from B.O.B. He's a flat Earth truther. His latest proclamation, the solar eclipse doesn't disprove the flat Earth theory because the moon generates its own light. And it basically has a series of tweet interactions. So somebody says, you realize that the only reason you see the moon in the first place is because the sun casts light on it, right? All light is behind it now? And Bob says, according to a textbook, yes, but the moon actually generates its own light. The reply says, so you're telling me there are light bulbs in the moon? How the hell does it generate light? It's a rock. Is it flat to you too? Bob says, a spherical object doesn't reflect light evenly across its surface. And he's fought with Neil deGrasse Tyson, so there's, again, some must-flee tweet TV, Neil deGrasse Tyson and B.O.B. So that's another classic moves from B.O.B. And actually, I did wonder for just a second, as I was enjoying the eclipse from the balcony, I was like, oh, what do the flat earthers say about this? Now, as long as we're disproving things, I'm sure you saw the pictures, and I'm sure there are memes as well, of America's next top president looking up at the eclipse like a dummy without the special glasses. Now, when I was putting together show notes last night and grabbing some clips and looking for some things, I was going to grab a clip and let's see idiot staring up at the solar eclipse. Spoiler, like a lot of things in the dinosaur mainstream fake news generation, it's only a second. He walks out on the balcony for a second and glances up. Melania's already put on her glasses. And you hear people in the crowd go, hey, don't look at it, ha ha ha. And he has his glasses on a couple of seconds later. So, another kind of classic misrepresentation. You glance at the pictures and it makes it seem as though he stood out there all day and stared at the solar eclipse like a fucking dummy. He did look at the eclipse without glasses like a fucking dummy, to be sure. But it was only for a second. This is just general level America's next top puppet president idiocy. This is just quail can't spell potato. This is George Bush almost killing and electrocuting himself at the electric car show. This is Obama thinking there are 57 states in America. This is just general level news idiocy. Oh, here's a fantastic idea. Maybe our friends who are creating the YouTube Killer BitChute and Patreon Killer Monotile, maybe they can also create special glasses for looking at news photos. Maybe they already did that in that movie, They Live. So, another situation where it's not exactly as it seemed. However, what is exactly as it seemed is the time-tested presidential tradition of continuing America's longest war. Hey, hope and change, hallelujah. Drain the swamp, lock her up. And that other classic, more troops in Afghanistan.
The American people are weary of war without victory. Nowhere is this more evident than with the war in Afghanistan. The longest war in American history, 17 years. I share the American people's frustration. My original instinct was to pull out. And historically, I like following my instincts. But all my life, I've heard that decisions are much different when you sit behind the desk in the Oval Office. A hasty withdrawal would create a vacuum that terrorists, including ISIS and Al-Qaeda, would instantly fill, just as happened before September 11th. And as we know, in 2011, America hastily and mistakenly withdrew from Iraq. A core pillar of our new strategy is a shift from a time-based approach to one based on conditions. We will not talk about numbers of troops or our plans for further military activities. Conditions on the ground, not arbitrary timetables, will guide our strategy from now on. America's enemies must never know our plans or believe they can wait us out. I will not say when we are going to attack, but attack we will. We are a partner and a friend, but we will not dictate to the Afghan people how to live or how to govern their own complex society. We are not nation building again. We are killing terrorists. Pakistan has much to gain from partnering with our effort in Afghanistan. It has much to lose by continuing to harbor criminals and terrorists. America will work with the Afghan government as long as we see determination and progress. However, our commitment is not unlimited, and our support is not a blank check.
America, Filling the terror vacuum since 1776. It is a blank check. You lying fool. You puppet sucker. You Pied Piper. As he has been not only portrayed, but also tagged as being the Pied Piper. President Trump outlined a revised vision for the U.S. war in Afghanistan on Monday, pledging to end a strategy of nation-building and instead institute a policy aimed more squarely at addressing the terrorist threat that emanates from the region. You should probably stop writing them checks. Trump provided few specifics about his policy and how much the U.S. military commitment in the region would increase as a result, insisting that conditions on the ground would determine troop levels and strategy. And again, as is noted in our chat, this rhetoric bullshit has been the same since JFK. This country was hijacked and sold out after World War II. We brought Nazis over. That's pretty much it. Now, you could argue there were all the other steps before that, and there were the steps before that. But it's been the same, and it's been a bunch of garbage, and it's been a bunch of jokes, and it's been phony facades of presidents, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to stop that. Let's get more from the Washington Compost, who, of course, I'm sure now would find war distasteful. Or this is the point where Trump owns these wars, and this is the point where the establishment corporate media, which fake as though they're against Trump in like the WWF wrestling situations that he was so fond of in the past, this is probably the point where they rally round the leader. Although they don't rally around the leader until we have a catastrophic, catalyzing terror event. Trump's decision to further commit to the nation's longest war rather than withdraw reflects a significant shift in his approach to Afghanistan since taking office and marks a new willingness to take greater ownership of a protracted conflict that he had long dismissed as a waste of time and resources. As candidate Trump, he denounced Afghanistan as a total disaster and railed that the costly conflict in Central Asia drained enormous resources at a time of more pressing needs at home for American taxpayers. Candidate Trump was essentially telling the truth, as candidate Trump saw it. Now, here's a good bit. If you would like that entire speech that Trump gave yesterday evening on prime time, you can find the entire speech up on Mark Dice's channel, because that's what passes for alternative media. President-loving jackasses who finally hit upon the marketing scheme that worked. Calling yourself John Connor with the Resistance Manifesto and fake names like you're out of the Terminator movie. Oh, that didn't quite work, but it worked a little bit back in the early 2000s. Then you did your Jay Leno dickhead on the street asking people dumb questions. But now, finally, he's hit upon the phrase that pays. Liberal lunatics. Now, I tried to do a quick search there while that clip was playing of Hope and Change Drain the Swamp President. Pretty much sounds like the George Carlin bits about war as sexual terms. You know, we'll prick holes in their stiff defense. And we'll never withdraw because you don't get anywhere by being soft. We'll have to find that. We'll have to play that on your daily DJ set. You're listening to Your Morning Monarchy. It's a Cyberspace War Day where we look at all the interspace and outer space news. Did I say interspace? I mean inner space, you know, like that awesome Dennis Quaid movie. When Zero Hedge last reported that Imran Awan and his wife had been indicted by a grand jury on 4 counts, including bank fraud and making false statements related to some home equity loans. They also noted that those charges could simply be placeholders for further developments yet to come. Now, according to a new report from Daily Caller, who has been doing fantastic work on the Awan brothers scandal, the more interesting component of the FBI's investigation could be tied to precisely why the New York Democratic Representative Yvette Clarke quietly agreed in early 2016 to simply write off $120,000 in missing electronics to the Awans. Now, what do we point out when we say write-offs and write-downs? That's economic speak for they ate that money. A chief of staff for Democratic Representative Yvette Clarke quietly agreed in early 2016 to sign away a $120,000 missing electronics problem on behalf of 2 former IT aides now suspected of stealing equipment from Congress. Clark's chief of staff at the time effectively dismissed the loss and prevented it from coming up in future audits by signing a form removing the missing equipment from a house-wide tracking system. After one of the Awan brothers alerted the office, the equipment was gone. The Pakistani-born brothers now are at the center of an FBI investigation over their IT work with dozens of congressional offices. The $120,000 figure amounts to about a tenth of the office's annual budget, or enough to hire 4 legislative assistants to handle the concerns of constituents in her New York district. Yet when one of the brothers alerted the office to the massive loss, the chief of staff signed a form that quietly reconciled the missing equipment in the budget office. Abid Awan remained employed by the office for months after the loss of the equipment was flagged. If true, of course, this new information would seem to support previously reported rumors that the Awans orchestrated a long-running fraud scheme in which their office would purchase equipment in a way that avoided tracking by central house-wide administrators and then sell that equipment for a personal gain while simultaneously defrauding taxpayers of thousands of dollars. That's the low-level short con of this game. The longer con is that it probably looks as though they are blackmailing the DNC. So Zero Hedge says the plot thickens as New York Democrat Yvette Clarke quietly wrote off $120,000 of missing tech equipment. Abid Awan. I can pronounce names correctly sometimes. So here's a funny situation where I see one of my hashtags being used, not by myself, not by one of the awesome listeners and supporters who take part in not only helping fund this show, but also sourcing the show with the news that we talk about. Scrolling down cyberspace war hashtag. And what do I suddenly see? I see 4 articles, all with the same headline, all coming from ostensibly different news organizations, but they all have the same hashtags. Japan preparing for cyberspace war. And they have hashtag cyberspace war, hashtag Japan North Korea, and also hashtag main slider. Which, if I didn't know better, that would make me think you accidentally made a hashtag out of one of your website widgets. Was that the main slider at the top? The flipper, you know, that it goes through and rotates through the pictures as you're sitting there, and you go, wait, I want that. Hold on, go back. So this looks fairly robotic. This is probably another situation where they were just typing in the hashtags and wanted cyberspace war. Oh, that's a thing. I'll type it out. North Korea has accused Japan of building a cyberspace attack force in its military for attacking the computer systems of rival countries under the pretext of self-defense. What a crazy, crazy claim. Gosh, those North Koreans are just nutty, right? Can you believe the things they make up? Do you think major first world nations have entire armies fighting the net like an enemy weapon system? Holy moly, that sounds like the crazy ravings of some inbred family rulers, right? The Japanese Defense Ministry is planning to boost the size and capability of its cyber unit under the excuse of self-defense against hackers. The members of the cyber unit will be drastically increased, and a department for specializing in cyber attack capability will be set up. Their cyber unit is not for merely protecting the computer system of the self-defense forces from hacking, but for attacking the computer systems of its rivals, Xinhua quoted. If they are engrossed in war hysteria for re-invasion of the Korean Peninsula while talking about the improvement of the so-called attacking capability, far from drawing a lesson from their crimes-woven past history, they will follow in the footsteps of their defeated predecessors. But the Japanese Defense Ministry announced last month of increasing the number of soldiers in its cyber defense unit from the current 110 to 1,000 as a part of the government's plan to boost its cyber defense capabilities ahead of the, oh my gosh, so excited, 2020 Tokyo Olympics. You're listening to The Morning Monarchy, Cyberspace War style. And we get our news from you. We get our news from our friends like Ray Vahi and our friends Sean Cathcart. And it's all cyberspace war news today. Some of the world's leading robotics and artificial intelligence pioneers are calling on the United Nations to ban the development and use of killer robots. Tesla's Elon Musk and Alphabet's Mustafa Suleyman are leading a group of 116 specialists from across 26 countries who are calling for the ban on autonomous weapons. The UN recently voted to begin formal discussions on such weapons, which include drones, tanks, and automated machine guns. Ahead of this, the group of founders of AI and robotics companies have sent an open letter to the UN calling for it to prevent the arms race that is currently underway for killer robots. In the letter, the founders warn the review conference of the Convention on Conventional Weapons that this arms race threatens to usher in the third revolution in warfare after gunpowder and nuclear arms. Once developed, lethal autonomous weapons will permit armed conflict to be fought at a scale greater than ever, and at times scales faster than humans can comprehend. These can be weapons of terror, weapons that despots and terrorists use against innocent populations, and weapons hacked to behave in undesirable ways. We do not have long to act. Once this Pandora's box has opened, it will be hard to close. And it's in situations like these where we often quote Ani DeFranco, "Any tool is a weapon if you hold it right." Experts have previously warned that AI technology has reached a point where the deployment of autonomous weapons is feasible within years rather than decades. While AI can be used to make the battlefield a safer place for military personnel, experts fear that offensive weapons that operate on their own would lower the threshold of going to battle and result in greater loss of human life. Sounds like mission accomplished for the powers that shouldn't be, and for companies who have made it their business buying up robotics companies. I'm pretty sure Google bought Boston Dynamics, right? Am I wrong? These are the same organizations. There's a lot of crying about don't throw me in the briar patch anymore. And even the same people who all got real mad on November 9th. So they had a rude awakening because they were asleep for 8 years, while their favorite president lied and went against everything the candidate had said. They went to sleep. They went sleepy time. And they all woke up with a shock on November 9th. A lot of times those people all work for and operate and still help out the same organizations they claim to now be against. Oh, did they increase it to 3 minutes? It was 2 minutes hate, but of course, because of all the dire situations they're in, I just learned from the chat, I think it's 3 minutes hate now. The letter, warning on AI, launching at the opening of the International Joint Conference on Artificial Intelligence in Melbourne. Is that this Monday? Yes. Started up yesterday. It has the backing of high-profile figures in the robotics field and strongly stresses the need for urgent action after the UN was forced to delay a meeting that was due to start Monday to review the issue. Founders call for morally wrong lethal autonomous weapons to be added to the list of weapons banned under the UN's Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons, CCW, certain conventional weapons, brought into force in 1983, which includes chemical and intentionally blinding laser weapons. So that's Elon Musk leading the charge to call for the ban of killer robots, when it's their companies that will be creating said killer robots. Now let's go from outer space, in a way, to inner space, as we see all the organizations. Again, we've been talking about this for many a moon. Facebook, Twitter, MySpace, any of that, they don't have to let you post whatever you want. They are private corporations that let you into their controlled ghetto. And they'll let you in, and you can play Farmville, and you can gripe about some TV, and you can gripe about some politics. But it's not your site. They'll boot you out the moment they feel like it. We've often talked about it. I like it sometimes when restaurants have signs that say, "We reserve the right to refuse service to anybody." Yeah, that's right, because it's your business. If you want to have a business that just serves up cigarette smoke and bagpipes, that's your place. I probably won't go there. So we can't be surprised when the outlets start to crack down. They're just making their shareholders happy. YouTube has apologized after mistakenly removing videos portraying war crimes and other facets of the Syrian civil war by activists and opposition groups. Whoops! Last week, a number of organizations, including Middle East Eye, which is where we're grabbing the story from right now, and again, everything we say and play always included in the show notes, open source investigation site Bellingcat, and monitoring group Air Wars, said that a number of their videos had been removed by YouTube for violating the platform's community guidelines. Furthermore, some media outlets found their entire YouTube account suspended, including Bellingcat founder Elliot Higgins and Syrian opposition media channel Orient News. The removals began days after Google, which owns YouTube, which is owned by Alphabet, which has their leader going to beg the UN to stop autonomous killer robots. Haha. The removals began days after Google trumpeted the arrival of an artificial intelligence program that it said could spot and flag extremist videos without human involvement. But since then, vast tracts of footage, including evidence used in the Chelsea Manning court case and videos documenting the destruction of ancient artifacts by ISIS, have been flagged as extremist and deleted from its archives. In a statement released last Wednesday, YouTube conceded it had made the wrong call on a number of videos and said they have been reinstated. We recently announced technological improvements to the tools our reviewers use in video takedowns and continue to improve these. With the massive volume of videos on our site, sometimes we make the wrong call. YouTube told Middle East Eye in an email last week that the video drone footage by Islamic State shows suicide car attacks on Iraqi forces inside Mosul was removed and that YouTube had assigned a community guidelines strike or temporary penalty to the Middle East Eye account. That video has since been restored. The same occurred in the case of video appears to show Egyptian soldiers carrying out extrajudicial killings. Middle East Eye lodged an appeal with YouTube and received the response. After further review of the content, we've determined that your video does violate our community guidelines and have upheld our original decision. We appreciate your understanding. We're sorry you're angry. Carl's Jr. is very concerned. We're sorry you're angry. We took your kids. YouTube admits wrong call over deletion of Syrian war crimes videos. Whoops. Sorry about that. You thought we actually cared about you and weren't just a money-making enterprise. Meanwhile, the Electronic Frontier Foundation have spoken out against the banning of neo-Nazi website Daily Stormer after back-end web infrastructure companies like GoDaddy and Google/Alphabet cut services to the site for political reasons. Silencing one group could lead to the silencing of others whose opinions companies don't agree with, the EFF warned, adding that this kind of corporate overreach was dangerous. Protecting free speech is not something we do because we agree with all the speech that gets protected. We do it because we believe that no one, not the government, not private commercial enterprise, should decide who gets to speak and who doesn't. Any tactic used now to silence neo-Nazis will soon be used against others, including peoples whose opinions we agree with. Those on the left face calls to characterize the Black Lives Matter movement as a hate group. In the civil rights era, cases that formed the basis of today's protections of freedom of speech, the NAACP's voice was the one attacked. That's how this goes again and again and again. We've said it when times were a little less fraught. It's pretty lame that one of the biggest free speech advocates that we have to defend is somebody like Howard Stern. Never liked that show. I've never liked that crap. But I'll fight to the death for his right to do it. So to speak. You're listening to The Morning Monarchy. I'm James Evan Pilato from MediaMonarchy.com. Few things are certain in 2017's fraught national climate. But hate certainly doesn't look to be going away anytime soon. Yeah, we have a bumper crop of hate. In a partnership with ProPublica, Google News Labs is launching a new tool to track hate crimes across America, powered by machine learning. As you will be soon, too. The Documenting Hate News Index will track reported hate crimes across all 50 states, collecting data from February 2017 onward. Data visualization studio Pitch Interactive helped craft the index, which collects Google News results and filters them through Google's natural language analysis to extract geographic and contextual information. So they are going to track hate crimes. Now, will they also track the times where a week later it turns out Israeli kid drew all those swastikas? Black girl was running that Twitter KKK account. Do you think they'll ever do any of those follow-ups? Yeah, I don't think so. So there's ProPublica willingly going down the toilet as well. God, last year, nearly this time, we thought we were just having to sort of unfollow the New York Times and MSNBC. Now we pretty much are going to have to unfollow and disconnect and boycott, divest, and sanction ourselves away from Google and Twitter and ProPublica and probably Discord and the rest of them. Oh, but don't forget, let's add Namecheap to the list as well. You've heard of GoDaddy. You maybe have heard of Register. Let's have Namecheap. And this is their own statement. At Namecheap, we see both sides of the free speech consideration, because there are only two sides, remember. On the one hand, we cannot be the ones censoring content, unpopular though it may be. Actually, it seems like it's really popular. On the other hand, and without question, the content appearing on the dailystormer.lol is highly offensive, even more so in light of the recent events in Charlottesville, which are, of course, pale in comparison to any given fucking weekend in Chicago. We find ourselves in a difficult position where we must balance the repugnant nature of the content against our principles, beliefs, and ongoing support of free speech. This has been particularly challenging, given that the blah-blah-blah, this is a pretty long letter, and I'm not going to read that entire garbage. Inciting violence versus freedom of speech. Edited. So as our buddy Ray Vahi tweeted, let it be known, Namecheap followed GoDaddy regarding the registration of controversial domains. So we won't use Namecheap, as we haven't at this point, so pretty easy to continue not using it. Now, what do you do also when you've divested, you've stopped using these services, but then the services still come after you and say, no, you're infringing upon us. We're a multinational, international, mega corporation who, of course, have to stop any bit of so-called competition. We've talked about this story before. Let's give a little more coverage to our buddy Justin Lewis. He's down in Florida. He started a company called Nature Bay, which is basically a way to help you find organic producers and growers of products, food, services. eBay, however, has stopped him from registering that domain name. Let's get more on Nature Bay.
Now it's a story of David versus Goliath happening right here in the Tampa Bay area. This Winter Haven middle school teacher is David, and Goliath is one of the biggest companies around. Talking about eBay. eBay wants Justin Lewis to change the name of his startup business. And as Fox 13's Ken Suarez now reports for us, Lewis is saying he's not going to be pushed around even by a powerhouse.
Yeah, we got some green pepper, we got some strawberries.
Sunny Florida Organics has all kinds of healthy food for sale. But you might not know about it because it's located in a nondescript warehouse. That's where Nature Bay comes in, a website founded by 6th grade science teacher Justin Lewis.
The point of the company is to help people find what's healthy, what's good for their communities, and what's good for the environment.
He's been working on Nature Bay for the last 4 years. Everything was going along pretty well until Lewis decided to trademark the name. Out of nowhere, he gets a letter from eBay saying, no, you're not. eBay has bought companies that sound similar to it before. Perfume Bay, Trade Bay, Coin Bay. Nature Bay, even more of a target, because it has the letter E and the word Bay. In a letter to Lewis, eBay writes, regardless of your intent, your use and registration of Nature Bay for online directory or marketplace services will dilute the distinctiveness of eBay and cause consumers to mistakenly believe that your online directory and business is somehow affiliated with eBay. Despite the money and power of eBay, Lewis says he's not going to cave.
I have 120 students that I've told to stand up to bullying, and I'm very, very adamant about that. And so for me, this is living what I preach.
At the moment, Lewis doesn't even have an attorney, so he's going it alone, hoping that in his mind, right wins over might. In Winter Haven, Ken Suarez, Fox 13 News.
Who knows, maybe an attorney will step forward and help him out. The first round in the eBay wars is this weekend. Lewis has to file paperwork defending his company's name. We'll let you know what happens.
So we're going to continue to follow that story. We've talked to Justin Lewis. We were actually, I believe, maybe the first interview on his forthcoming podcast series. And that article from Fox 13 News out of Florida. eBay stops Bay Area company from registering domain name. Now they're talking about Tampa Bay, Florida Bay. Here on the West Coast, when you say Bay Area, that kind of means something else. This Fox 13, he's getting news coverage. He is getting local news coverage. Now, we've talked about this before. At your local news place, they're not sitting around tinting their fingers, ha ha ha, and thinking about all the content and all the things they're not going to cover and the stories that they'll help bury. They're just regular-ass people trying to do their jobs, probably with less resources and less money and less help, like everybody else in all their other jobs. If you send them press releases, the chances are pretty damn decent that they're going to look into it. They want content. They want that story that nobody else is talking about. They're like any other job. Ooh, I'm going to go get that. I'm going to go, oh, that'll be a great commission for me. I'll look good and it'll go on my reel. So let that be a lesson for you in your situation, whatever town, whatever place you're in, whether it's about community gardens or who knows what. Make a stink. It actually works really well. And our buddy Justin Lewis of Nature Bay is fighting the good fight and actually really needs everybody's help, just essentially making this story a bigger story and beating the drums and making it a giant racket. Those are usually the things that multinational corporations shy away from, again, because all they want is to make their shareholders happy. If all their shareholders suddenly say, oh, we're perceived as being a bunch of bully bastards because we're picking on this kid in Florida who just wanted to make a website where farmers can hook up, we can probably make the story larger. So find that story in the tweets, and Justin is on the tweets at Nature Bay. You're listening to The Morning Monarchy. I'm James Evan Pilato from MediaMonarchy.com. Last couple of stories here using hashtag cyberspace war. Unicorn. Is that how that says? UNIKRN. All the made-up words. What are they, opening for Chiverches and Always? Unicorn, a U.S. sports betting digital platform backed by some of the biggest names in media, entertainment, and sports, will launch the sale of $100 million in cryptocurrency next month, the company's co-founder and chief executive officer, Raul Sood, told Reuters in an interview. The sale is part of a trend in which creators of digital currencies in the blockchain space sell tokens to the public to fund their projects. Some startups call this mode of financing an initial coin offering, an ICO. Others refer to it as a token sale, and the story is coming from Reuters, who notes that cryptocurrency is a digital currency in which encryption techniques help keep transactions secure. Blockchain is a digital ledger of transactions underpinning the original online currency, Bitcoin. Sood explains that Unicorn embraced cryptocurrency as a way to bypass banking institutions. The problem when you're dealing with the banks is that none of these guys are easy to work with. You're dealing with 20 different currencies. You're dealing across borders. There's no other reason to go this route other than to circumvent banking. The new coin will be called Unicoin Gold, which will be a cryptocurrency version of the company's existing coin, Unicoin. The current Unicoin, which allows users to bet on esports in regulated markets and win prizes in markets where Unicorn is not licensed to operate, will be phased out once Unicoin Gold is launched. U.S. esports platform to launch $100 million cryptocurrency sale in September, with the unlikely name of Unicorn. I'll place that in the chat just so you'll know I'm not making up words and mispronouncing things. Meanwhile, over in Wisconsin, the latest on the Wisconsin State Assembly debate of the $3 billion Foxconn bill, they passed it. They passed a $3 billion tax break package for the Taiwan-based electronics giant Foxconn Technology Group. The bipartisan vote Thursday now sends the bill to the Senate, where it must also pass in identical form before it goes to Republican Governor Scott Walker. The Assembly passed the measure 59-30, with 3 Democrats joining 56 majority Republicans in support. The vote comes 3 weeks after Trump and Walker announced the deal for Foxconn to invest up to $10 billion on a display panel manufacturing facility in Wisconsin. It could employ up to 13,000 people in depressing, environmentally destructive jobs. That's why we keep those overseas, because they're pretty much terrible jobs. You too can have a depressing, suicidal tendency-giving job. Making fondle slab screens. Our final story is a scary one, and unfortunately I'm even slowly running out of time here to give it as much attention as it actually deserves, as we take it from Washington.edu, the University of Washington, my neighbor to the north. Computer scientists use music to covertly track body movements.
With the abundance of connected devices such as smart TVs, phones, and personal assistants like Alexa in our homes, there's an increased number of connected speakers and microphones with access to our private environment. We present CovertBand, a system that can track movement in 2D using only off-the-shelf speakers and microphones. We show that CovertBand can accurately track the motion of multiple people even through barriers like wooden doors, drywall, or glass windows, and leak information about people's private activities. An inconspicuous activity like playing a song on a loudspeaker can thus be used to spy on people. In addition to tracking people, CovertBand can also distinguish between broad classes of movement. Here, it can clearly distinguish between rhythmic motions and linear ones like walking. CovertBand achieves this by using active sonar technology. It plays a high-frequency OFDM signal and monitors the changing reflections caused by human motion. CovertBand conceals this high-frequency OFDM signal within the beats of popular songs, making it indistinguishable. This means that the attacker can implement this attack even remotely. Using a smart TV speaker and microphone, an attacker can monitor these activities from halfway around the globe. With the increasing number of devices like personal assistants that have their speakers and microphones constantly on, this is an important privacy issue to be addressed.
This is an important privacy issue to be addressed, which is why the Paul G. Allen School is talking about it. Computer scientists use music to covertly track body movements. So let's just break this down quickly and briefly as we wrap up this episode. Researchers at the University of Washington have demonstrated how it's possible to transform a smart device. Those are all your TVs and your refrigerators with microphones and cameras on them, connected to the Internet of Things. Possible to transform a smart device into a surveillance tool that can collect information about the body position and movements of the user, as well as other people in the device's immediate vicinity. Their approach involves remotely hijacking smart devices to play music embedded with repeating pulses that track a person's position, body movements, and activities, both in the vicinity of the device as well as through walls. The team from the University of Washington's Paul G. Allen School of Computer Science and Engineering showed how it's possible to collect such detailed data on personal activity using CovertBand. One word, camel case, CovertBand. It looks like Rock Band. It looks like Guitar Hero, but it is the way they will use your smart TVs to track you. It's already been noted in the chat. Where there is a speaker, there is a microphone. Paul Allen, it's worth noting, of course, co-founded Microsoft with Bill Gates. So this is the kind of technology they like to look at and like to investigate and like to furrow their brows about, but ultimately, you bet your ass all the people on that board will buy it up as soon as it's available, and they will use it. Using music waves to track you. That's the scary way we actually wrap up this Cyberspace War episode. You can find all those stories again in the show notes. And again, I just implore you to take a look at the hashtag on Twitter and look at all the other stories. We've got pretty awesome electro music from Tobacco. That's the mysterious member of Black Moth Super Rainbow. He's got a gigantic new compilation coming out called Ripe and Majestic, Instrumental Rarities and Unreleased Beats. And we've got a little song called Slaughtered by the Amway Guy coming up as your song of the day at the end of this episode. But first, let's take a look at this day in history, my friends. August 22nd, 1851, the first America's Cup yacht race is won by the yacht America. Fuck yeah. August 22nd, 1902, Theodore Roosevelt becomes the first president of the United States to make a public appearance in an automobile. August 22nd, 1922, Michael Collins, you might know him as the Liam Neeson film, Commander-in-Chief of the Irish Free State Army, shot dead in an ambush during the Irish Civil War. Which I don't think I noted it here. I, of course, love the tweet that said, only America would be stupid enough to start another civil war based on the statues from the previous Civil War. Sidebar. Continuing this day in history, August 22nd, 1923, in Kalamazoo, Michigan, an ordinance was passed forbidding dancers from gazing into the eyes of their partner. August 22nd, 1962, the OAS attempts to assassinate French President Charles de Gaulle. This is during the war with Algeria. Secret, of course, deep state terrorist groups. You know, par for the course. August 22nd, 1965, two classic songs released, Barry Maguire's Eve of Destruction and the Lovin' Spoonful's Do You Believe in Magic, both released on this day in 1965. August 22nd, 1971, J. Edgar Hoover, cross-dressing extraordinaire, and John Mitchell both announced the arrest of 20 of the Camden 28. August 22nd, 1972, Rhodesia is expelled by the IOC. It's the International Olympic Committee for its racist policies. Now, what would you expect from a place founded by Cecil Rhodes? August 22nd, 1973, the Congress of Chile votes in favor of a resolution condemning President Salvador Allende's government and demands that he resign or else be unseated through some force and new elections. Oh, nice democratically elected government there. Be a shame if some CIA operatives overthrew you on 9/11, 1973. That's only, 3 weeks away from this point in history? August 22nd, 1976, it was announced by RCA Victor that the sale of Elvis Presley records had passed the 400 million mark. This day in 1979, Gary Numan's classic Cars single was released. And on August 22nd, 1992, on the second day of a standoff at Randy Weaver's remote northern Idaho cabin, FBI sharpshooter Lon Haruchi wounds Randy Weaver, Kevin Harrison, and kills Randy Weaver's wife, Vicky.
At the time, it was all shrouded in secrecy. But there were meetings at the highest of levels, clear back to Washington, D.C., like, how can we affect the arrest of this man? Some people, I later found out, were actually advocating a front-on tactical assault. To go up there with armored personnel carriers and, whatever kind of armament they needed and just shoot it out with him.
I told Randy, I said, you don't really understand what the full weight and power of this government is. And what it would really mean if you want a confrontation with it. I think I used the term that it's like a locomotive. Once you get it rolling down the tracks, it's hard to stop.
You call yourself an American? These are Americans. These are God-fearing people. You don't even know your Constitution. Go back and read what your founding fathers said.
We were taught from a very early age to never point a gun at anything you don't plan on shooting. Dad was very, very strict about that. Guns were tools in our family. They were there for protection from wild animals or to hunt game. Guns were there for a purpose.
This is North Idaho, 1992. 50 miles or so from the Canadian border. Here's a man with his family, armed to the teeth, who knew that a federal judge wanted him to come to court, and he was refusing to do that. And he lived with the consequences.
Living with the consequences means if you go against anything Uncle Scam wants, whether he wants your land or the business you started or wants to have some sort of say what you might do with yourself and your family, that's what gets the gun. You want to try and make your own drugs in your house? No way. We're going to launch a massive war against meth. Anything that goes against the monopoly of power gets the gun. Huh. My critical thinking philosophy teacher covered Ruby Ridge, Waco, and OKC bombing. That class was awesome. There are good classes out there. There are good teachers out there. There are also good preachers, good sports guys. There are good people in all the areas. I don't want you to think I don't know that truly. Continuing to look at this day in history, my friends, August 22nd, 1994, John Denver was charged with drunken driving after crashing his Porsche into a tree. August 22nd, 1995, REM sues Hershey Foods, claiming the company exploited its name when it ran a Kit Kat REM concert sweepstakes and Hershey candy bars. The suit was eventually dropped. Another lawsuit. A year later, 96 on this day, former Talking Heads singer David Byrne sued to prevent the rest of the group from touring as The Heads. The suit was settled out of court. August 22nd, 2003, Alabama Chief Justice Roy Moore is suspended after refusing to comply with a federal court order to remove a rock inscribed with the Ten Commandments from the lobby of the Alabama Supreme Court building. And the battle over symbols rages on in the USSA. August 22nd, 2004, versions of The Scream and Madonna, two paintings by Edvard Munch, are stolen at gunpoint from a museum in Oslo, Norway. And on this day, 2007, Texas Rangers defeat the Baltimore Orioles 30-3, the most runs scored by a team in modern Major League Baseball history. There's a little bit of sports ball news for you. See, we got it all here in Media Monarchy. We've also had a website that's been online for nearly 12 years, published to Media Monarchy a decade ago today. Two very important stories. iPod generation struggling to read and write, and police accused of using provocateurs at Summit. That was, of course, the Security and Prosperity Partnership. That was the North American Union meeting in Canada that we were just talking about the other day. It had provocateurs in the group with rocks. Also, iPod generation can't read or write, and we've already talked about all their lack of tensile strength in their hands and their little T-Rex hands. Those stories are a decade ago to Media Monarchy. Think about where we are now. Think about the stories we're talking about now, where we might be a decade from now. And that's the context and the subtext of this day in history. Hey, celebrating birthdays today? There's some good ones. August 22nd, Claude Debussy, Dorothy Parker, Leni Riefenstahl, Henri Cartier-Bresson, John Lee Hooker would have been 100 today. We might hear some from him a little bit later today. Honor Blackman, Bob Flanagan from the Four Freshmen, Ray Bradbury, Norman Schwarzkopf, Annie Proulx, Chuck Brown, the inventor of go-go music in D.C., Valerie Harper, Cindy Williams, Scooter Libby. It's also Vernon Reid from Living Colour, Roland Orzabal from Tears for Fears, Debbie Peterson, she's the drummer from the Bangles. She also plays, I just saw her name in the liner notes of the new Matthew Sweet record. We'll also hear some of that. It's also Tori Amos's birthday, James DeBarge, Ty Burrell, Lane Staley, the late great singer from Alice in Chains. That's why our buddy Lauren Coleman of Copycat Effect was looking for some more grunge carnage around these dates, 22nd, 25th. It's also Craig Finn's birthday, and overrated folks like Kristen Wiig and James Corden. All celebrating birthdays today. Some of those musical folks will weasel their way into our daily DJ set at noon, and I will wet your whistle for that by going out with a little music today from Tobacco. Slaughtered by the Amway Guy is our song of the day as we wrap up this Cyberspace War edition of your Morning Monarchy. It's Tuesday, August 22nd, 2017. And I've been James Evan Pilato from MediaMonarchy.com, thanking you so much for listening and taking part, my friends, and reminding you, as always, don't hate the media, become the media. Take care.
listening to Media Monarchy with James Evan Pilato. Since 2005, Media Monarchy has covered the real news about politics, health, technology and the occult, all remixed with music and media that matters. Go to MediaMonarchy.com/support and become a monthly subscriber so you can help keep independent, non-commercial, alternative media going and growing. Thanks.